We all know what it feels like to get caught up in our emotions, to let the weight of a bad day, an argument, or a setback determine the direction of our lives. But what if I told you that the greatest prison you could ever find yourself in isn't built out of walls or iron bars, but out of your own negative emotions? And what if I told you that you don't have to stay there? Your emotions don't have to be your guide. They don't have to be the ones driving the car, telling you where to go and making the decisions about who you are. Too many of us live like that, don't we? We let our feelings decide who we're going to be, how we're going to react, what we're going to think, what we're going to believe. But that's not how you were made to live. Let's face it, negative emotions are powerful. They come on strong like waves crashing on the shore, pulling you in deeper with each passing moment. And in those moments, everything seems to feel bigger than it really is. The frustration, the doubt, the anger, it all feels like it's going to swallow you whole. It's like there's no escape, no way out. But here's the thing, there is a way out. You have the power to stop focusing on those emotions. You have the power to stop letting them define who you are. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore your feelings or pretend like they don't exist. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about refusing to let negative emotions take the lead in your life. I'm talking about not letting them determine your joy, your peace, or your purpose. The Bible talks about how we are to take every thought captive, to not let anything run wild in our minds. That includes our emotions. When those negative emotions rise up, when you feel overwhelmed by them, you don't have to entertain them. You don't have to give them a seat at the table. Because here's what happens when we give too much attention to our emotions. We start to let them shape our reality. We start to believe the lie that we're defined by how we feel. But that's not the truth. The truth is you're bigger than your emotions. You're stronger than your feelings. You're more than what you're going through right now. I know it's hard. I get it. I've been there, sitting in that place where everything seems wrong, where everything feels heavy, where it seems like nothing is ever going to change. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. Just because you're feeling discouraged doesn't mean you're defeated. Just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean you're hopeless. Just because you're feeling anxious doesn't mean that peace isn't coming. The reality is negative emotions are part of the human experience. We all feel them. We all go through seasons where it feels like nothing is going the way we want. We all face struggles, disappointments, and frustrations, but we don't have to live in that space. We don't have to let those emotions dictate the story of our lives. You've got to shift your focus. You've got to stop looking at the negative emotions and start looking at something greater. You've got to lift your eyes off of the problem and look to the one who holds all the answers. If you focus on the negative, if you let it consume your thoughts, it's going to be like you're staring at a giant wall, and that wall is going to seem bigger and bigger the longer you focus on it. But if you start to shift your focus, if you start to look up, that wall doesn't look as big anymore. You start to see a way around it, a way through it, a way over it. And that's the power of changing your focus. You've got to learn to take control of your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. It's not about denying what you're feeling, but about recognizing that those feelings don't have the power to rule your life. You're not a victim to your emotions. You're not bound to them. You don't have to let them dictate your actions or your attitude. You have the power to choose how you respond. You're in control of how you think. You're in control of how you speak. You're in control of how you act. And when you begin to take control of your mind, you start to see everything in a new light. You begin to see your challenges as opportunities. You begin to see your pain as purpose. You begin to see your struggles as stepping stones to something greater. Let me tell you something. If you keep focusing on the negative, if you keep giving your attention to the things that aren't going right, you're never going to experience the fullness of what God has for you. You'll never walk in the victory that's already yours. You'll never step into the freedom that's available to you. You've got to stop focusing on the negative. You've got to stop letting it have power over you. You've got to start looking at what's possible, what's ahead, what's to come. I know some of you are facing some real challenges right now. I know some of you are feeling overwhelmed, tired, discouraged. But I want you to hear me when I say this. Don't let those feelings determine your future. Don't let them steal your joy. Don't let them keep you from walking in the destiny God has for you. You are more than your emotion. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than what's happening right now. And when you stop focusing on the negative, that's when you'll start to see the breakthrough. You've got to recognize that what you're going through is temporary. The Bible says that the troubles of this world are but for a moment, but the glory that's coming is eternal. Whatever you're facing right now, whatever negative emotion you're feeling, it's not going to last forever. It may feel like it's never going to end, but I promise you, this too shall pass. I know that sometimes it feels like the negative emotions are all consuming, like you can't see beyond them, but I want you to know something. There's always something greater waiting for you. There's always a new day coming. There's always a way forward, even when it feels like there's not. And the way forward starts with changing your focus. You've got to stop focusing on what's wrong and start focusing on what's right. You've got to stop focusing on what you don't have and start focusing on what you do have. You've got to stop focusing on the things that are stressing you out and start focusing on the things that are blessing you. You've got to stop focusing on your fears and start focusing on your faith. Because the truth is, the more you focus on the negative, the more it grows. The more you give attention to the things that are bringing you down, the bigger they get. But when you choose to focus on the good, on what's right, on what's possible, that's when the negative starts to shrink. That's when the walls start to come down. That's when you start to walk in victory. Don't let negative emotions have control over you. You're stronger than that. You are capable of more than you realize. And when you choose to focus on the positive, when you choose to focus on the truth, when you choose to focus on what's good, that's when you'll start to experience the life you were meant to live. So I want to challenge you today. Stop focusing on the negative. Stop letting it control you. Stop letting it define who you are. Look up, look ahead, look to what's possible, and watch as your life begins to change, because when you change your focus, everything changes. Negative emotions can be powerful, and they often feel all-consuming. They have a way of creeping up on you, taking over your thoughts and influencing your decisions without you even realizing it. But here's the truth that so many people miss. Emotions, even the negative ones, don't define who you are. They may feel like they have all the power, but you are bigger than your emotions. You are stronger than the feelings that try to overwhelm you. When you allow negative emotions to define you, you let them take control of your life. You give them the authority to shape your actions, to direct your thoughts, and to limit your potential. It's as if you're allowing a fleeting feeling to become the foundation upon which you build your identity. The problem with this is that emotions are temporary. They come and go, ebb and flow like the tides of the ocean. Some days they are calm and other days they are raging. But just because you feel something doesn't mean it's a permanent truth about who you are. Consider the emotions you experience on a daily basis. Anger, frustration, sadness, anxiety. These emotions are real, but they aren't permanent. They are responses to what's happening in the moment, and they do not reflect your inherent worth or define your character. For instance, you might feel angry after an argument with a loved one, but that moment of anger doesn't define you as an angry person. You might feel sad after experiencing loss, but that sadness doesn't define you as someone who is always going to be sad. Emotions are temporary responses, not permanent labels. The danger comes when you start to believe that those fleeting emotions are the essence of who you are. When you let a single bad day make you think you're a failure, when a difficult situation makes you believe you're weak, or when a moment of uncertainty leads you to think you're incapable, that's when you lose sight of who you really are. Emotions can distort our view of ourselves. They cloud our judgment and make us believe lies about our worth and potential. But you are not the sum of your emotions. You are not defined by how you feel in a given moment. It's easy to let negative emotions convince you of things that aren't true. When you feel overwhelmed by stress, you might think, I can't handle this. When you feel rejected, you might think, I'm not good enough. When you feel anxious about the future, you might think, I'm not capable of making it through. These thoughts are the result of negative emotions, but they are not the truth. You might feel these things, but feeling them doesn't make them true. Your value, your strength, and your worth are not determined by how you feel in any given moment. You are not defined by your emotions. You are defined by something deeper. In fact, emotions are just one part of the human experience, and they are often unreliable. One moment you may feel like you're on top of the world, filled with joy and confidence, and then in the blink of an eye, something shifts and you feel sadness or fear or doubt. But just because you feel those negative emotions doesn't mean that they're a permanent part of you. They're like passing clouds in the sky, constantly shifting and changing, but they do not define the vastness of the sky itself. You are the sky. The emotions are just the clouds that come and go. There's a power in recognizing that emotions are temporary. When you understand that your feelings are not permanent, you can start to separate your identity from your emotions. You no longer have to feel controlled by them. You can experience them without letting them determine your actions. You can feel frustrated without believing that you're a frustrated person. You can feel anxious without believing that you are someone who is always anxious. You can feel disappointed without believing that you are a failure. The key is to recognize that emotions do not define you, and they don't have the right to control who you are or what you're capable of. One of the biggest mistakes people make is allowing their emotions to become their identity. You hear people say things like, I'm just an angry person, or I'm always anxious, or I can never be happy. This is a dangerous mindset because it reinforces the idea that your emotions are the final word on who you are. It's as if your emotions have taken over the narrative of your life, telling you that you are nothing more than the sum of your feelings. But that's not the truth. You are not your emotions. You are so much more than what you feel in any given moment. The real challenge is learning to separate your emotions from your identity. It's about learning that just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true about you. You might feel fear, but that doesn't make you a fearful person. You might feel overwhelmed, but that doesn't make you someone who can't handle challenges. Your emotions are just part of your experience, but they are not the whole story. To stop letting negative emotions define you, you have to be intentional about how you respond to them. Instead of allowing yourself to get swept up in the current of negative feelings, you need to step back and recognize that those feelings are temporary. You don't have to make decisions based on your emotions. You don't have to let them dictate your reactions. You can acknowledge them, feel them, and then choose to move forward without letting them control your actions or your thoughts. This takes practice. It's not always easy to separate yourself from your emotions, especially when they're intense. But the more you practice this, the easier it becomes to navigate life without letting your emotions call the shots. It's about realizing that while emotions are real, they are not the most powerful force in your life. You are. You have the power to choose how you respond. You have the power to decide who you want to be, regardless of how you feel in the moment. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed by negative emotions, take a step back and remind yourself, this feeling is not who I am. This frustration, this fear, this sadness, they do not define me. They are just part of my experience, not the whole of my identity. I am more than how I feel right now. I am stronger, I am capable, I am worthy, and I am not defined by my emotion. When you stop letting negative emotions define you, you open up the possibility for growth, for peace, and for joy. You free yourself from the prison that your emotions try to lock you in. You reclaim your identity as someone who is bigger than their feelings, someone who has the power to choose how they respond, someone who is not defined by what they feel, but by the truth of who they are. And in doing so, you can live a life of freedom, a life where your emotions don't hold the reins, but where you hold the power to determine your direction. The way you focus has the power to shape your reality. It's like the lens through which you view the world. When you focus on something, it becomes bigger in your mind. You start to notice it more. It becomes more significant, more real. And before you know it, it can consume you. If you're always focusing on the negative, you'll only see more of it. If you focus on the problems, the struggles, and the hardships, that's all you're going to see. But here's the truth. Your focus doesn't have to stay there. You can choose to shift your focus, to look beyond the immediate problems and instead focus on what's possible, what's good, and what's ahead. The power of shifting your focus lies in the fact that what you focus on grows. Think about it. If you focus on your weaknesses, your failures, or your shortcomings, that's what you'll start to believe about yourself. You'll start to see yourself through the lens of all the things you haven't done, the mistakes you've made, and the obstacles that have come your way. Your self-worth starts to shrink, and the possibilities in front of you begin to look smaller and smaller. But when you shift your focus to what's good, what's strong, what's possible, your perspective changes. Suddenly, your failures don't define you. Your mistakes don't control you. Your struggles become stepping stones, not barriers. And you begin to see a way forward, a path towards something better. Imagine standing in front of a beautiful landscape. If your eyes are fixed on a single small object in the distance, a rock, a tree, a fence, it's going to become the only thing you notice. You won't see the vastness of the mountains in the distance, or the beauty of the sky, or the wide open field. You'll only see that one thing you're focused on. But when you shift your focus, you begin to see the entire landscape. You see the beauty of the whole picture. You start to notice things you would have missed if you had stayed focused on the one small thing. In the same way, when you shift your focus in life, you begin to see the bigger picture. You start to notice the blessings, the opportunities, and the good things that were always there, but that you were too focused on the wrong things to notice. The key to shifting your focus is being intentional about it. It doesn't just happen on its own. If you don't actively choose to change your focus, You'll find yourself stuck in the same patterns of thinking. You'll keep focusing on the negative. You'll keep going over the same worries, the same doubts, and the same fears. But if you make the decision to focus on the good, on what's ahead, on what's possible, you start to change the trajectory of your life. It's about making a conscious effort to look beyond the immediate problems and see the opportunities that lie ahead. It's about choosing to look up instead of looking down, to see the potential instead of the limitation. The Bible talks about how we should set our minds on things above, not on earthly things. That doesn't mean ignoring the realities of life or pretending like everything is perfect, but it means choosing to focus on what's eternal, on what's true, on what's good. When you set your mind on things above, you stop letting the temporary struggles of this world take over your thoughts. You stop letting the setbacks and disappointments control your emotions. You stop letting the things that aren't going right consume your mind. Instead, you focus on the hope that lies ahead, on the purpose that's greater than any struggle you're facing, on the promises that have been given to you. Shifting your focus isn't about denying the difficulties in your life. It's about choosing to see them through a different lens. When you look at a problem through the lens of fear, it looks huge. It looks impossible. It looks like something that you can't overcome. But when you look at that same problem through the lens of faith, it doesn't seem as big anymore. You begin to see solutions where you once saw walls. You begin to see hope where you once saw despair. You begin to see that the problem is temporary and that you have the strength to face it. And when you shift your focus to the positive, when you choose to focus on the opportunities and the good things, the negative starts to shrink. It doesn't have the same power over you anymore. There's an incredible power in focusing on what's ahead. So many people spend their lives focused on the past, on the mistakes they've made, the opportunities they've missed, the regrets they carry. But focusing on the past keeps you stuck there. It keeps you from moving forward. It keeps you from experiencing the future that's waiting for you. The past is gone. You can't change it. You can learn from it, but you can't live in it. But the future is full of potential. The future is full of possibilities. And when you focus on what's ahead, you begin to see a future that's brighter than your present circumstances. Shifting your focus is also about seeing the opportunities in the midst of challenges. It's easy to look at a challenge and think it's an obstacle. It's easy to see a setback and think it's the end of the road, but every challenge you face is an opportunity for growth. Every setback is a chance to learn something new. Every difficulty is a chance to develop resilience, to build character, and to get stronger. When you focus on the opportunity in every challenge, you stop seeing the challenge as something that's against you and start seeing it as something that's for you. Your focus can also impact your relationships. If you're always focused on what's wrong in your relationships, on the things your partner or friend does that frustrates you, on the things that aren't perfect, you'll start to see your relationship through that negative lens. But when you shift your focus to what's right, to the things that you appreciate about the people in your life, to the good moments you share, your relationships will begin to thrive. It's not about ignoring the issues that need to be worked on. It's about making a conscious effort to focus on the positive aspects of your relationships and letting that positivity fuel the way you interact with others. Shifting your focus can also change your mindset. If you focus on your limitations, you'll feel stuck. You'll feel like you can't move forward. But if you focus on your strengths, you'll start to see your potential. You'll see that you have what it takes to overcome the challenges you face. You'll see that you are capable of more than you realize. And when you focus on your strengths and on what you can do, you begin to unlock the power within you to achieve your goals and live the life you were meant to live. The beauty of shifting your focus is that it's something you have control over. You can choose where to direct your attention. You can choose to focus on the good, the positive, the hopeful. And when you do, you start to see your world change. You start to see possibilities where you once saw problems. You start to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. And you start to move forward with confidence, knowing that your focus is aligned with the life you want to live. It all begins with where you choose to direct your attention. In life, it's easy to become consumed by the present moment, especially when things aren't going the way you hoped or planned. You might be facing challenges, experiencing disappointment, or dealing with setbacks that feel overwhelming. But the key to navigating through these struggles is understanding one crucial truth. The challenges you're facing right now are not permanent. They are temporary, and as overwhelming as they might seem, they do not define your future. One of the most powerful truths to remember when you're going through hard times is that this moment does not last forever. Whatever difficulty you're facing, no matter how insurmountable it may feel, is only temporary. The tough seasons in life, the moments of struggle, the times when you feel like giving up, they are just that. Moments. They are just part of the journey, not the destination. When you realize that your struggles are temporary, you free yourself from the trap of believing that things will never change. You begin to see that no matter how difficult life may seem right now, it is not the end of the story. Think about the most challenging times you've faced in the past. Maybe it was a relationship that ended, a job loss, or a personal setback. At the time, those moments probably felt like the world was crumbling around you. The pain felt like it would never go away, and the future seemed uncertain. But now, looking back, you can see that those difficult moments were temporary. You made it through them. You grew through them. You came out stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And in the same way, the struggles you face right now will not last forever. You will come through this. This season of difficulty is just that, a season. Seasons change. Winter eventually gives way to spring, and what seems dead and barren will bloom again. It's important to keep this perspective because when you're stuck in the middle of a tough situation, it can be hard to see beyond it. The weight of the problem, the intensity of the emotions can blind you to the hope that lies on the other side. But even in the darkest moments, there is always light ahead. Every storm runs out of rain. Every night eventually gives way to day. The struggle you're in today is not a reflection of your future, nor is it an indication of your worth or abilities. You are more than your circumstances, and your situation is not permanent. This understanding that struggles are temporary can help you shift your mindset. Instead of seeing the problem as something that will define you forever, you can view it as a lesson, a challenge that will pass. This mindset shift is powerful because it changes the way you approach adversity. Instead of allowing it to break you, you begin to see it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. You begin to believe that you are capable of overcoming whatever is in your path because you know that no matter how difficult it seems, it will not last forever. Your current situation is just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. When you start seeing your struggles as temporary, it also helps you keep a long-term perspective. It's easy to become fixated on the immediate moment, to focus on how hard things are right now. But when you take a step back and think about the bigger picture, you realize that the pain you're feeling today won't last forever. There is more to your story than the struggles you're facing right now. In fact, some of the most beautiful parts of your life are yet to come. The challenges you face today are shaping you for the future. They are preparing you for something greater, something bigger, and something better than you could ever imagine. When you realize this, the pain of the present moment becomes more manageable. You understand that it's not the end, it's just a part of the journey. One of the most powerful things you can do in times of struggle is to remind yourself of this truth: you are being prepared for something greater. Every challenge, every setback, every hardship is building your character, developing your resilience, and preparing you for the future you are meant to live. Just as a diamond is formed under pressure, you too are being shaped and refined through the challenges you face. The pressure might feel intense, but it is only temporary, and it is what makes you stronger. You will come out of this stronger than before, more capable than before, and more prepared for the future that awaits you. What you need to remember during tough times is that you are not alone. Even when it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you are not carrying it by yourself. There is always support, always a way forward, always hope, even if you can't see it at the moment. The strength to endure is not found within your circumstances, but within you. You have the resilience, the strength, and the ability to get through anything that comes your way. This strength comes from knowing that the struggle is not forever, that it is only temporary, and that better days are ahead. Even in the hardest times, you are being prepared for what is to come. The process of going through difficulty is not without purpose. While it may feel unfair or frustrating in the moment, every challenge has the potential to grow you, to teach you something valuable, and to help you become who you are meant to be. These struggles are not in vain. They are not punishment, they are preparation. And when you shift your mindset to see them as such, the burden of the struggle becomes lighter. Instead of feeling crushed by the weight of your problems, you start to see them as stepping stones, as opportunities for growth. You begin to understand that these moments of hardship are necessary for the fulfillment of your purpose, and that they are preparing you for something greater. This is why it's so important to keep your focus on the bigger picture. The pain you feel today is real, but it is not permanent. The setbacks, the disappointments, the challenges, they are temporary. They will pass, and when they do, you will be strong. You will have a story to tell of how you overcame adversity, of how you grew through the hard times, of how you stood firm when everything seemed to be falling apart. That story will become a testimony to the strength and resilience you carry within you. A testimony to the power of enduring through temporary struggles to reach a place of greater purpose and fulfillment. When you keep this perspective, when you understand that struggles are temporary, you start to develop a sense of peace and hope even in the midst of adversity. You begin to trust that everything is working together for your good even when it doesn't seem like it in the moment. And that trust will carry you through the darkest times, knowing that brighter days are ahead and that every struggle you face is preparing you for something greater. The struggles are temporary, but your future is full of promise. You have a choice. You have the power to decide how you will respond to the challenges that life throws at you. And one of the most important choices you can make is to refuse to settle for less than what you are capable of. Too many people get comfortable with mediocrity, convinced that the life they're living is the best they can do. They get trapped in a cycle of contentment with less, content with the things that are just enough, but never quite reaching the greatness they're meant for. But here's the truth. You were not created to settle for less. You were created for more, and it's time to stop accepting less than God's best for your life. The reality is that the world is full of distractions, temptations, and opportunities that can pull us away from what we truly want in life. And often we settle for things that don't fully align with our potential or our purpose because we're afraid of what it will take to pursue something better. Fear holds us back. Doubt clouds our vision. And instead of pressing forward, we settle. We settle for relationships that don't inspire us. We settle for jobs that drain us. We settle for lifestyles that keep us stuck, never truly growing or fulfilling our purpose. But settling for less than God's best is not the plan He has for you. He created you for a life that's abundant, fulfilling, and filled with purpose. Settling for less can show up in many ways. It can be settling for a relationship that isn't nurturing or growing you simply because it feels comfortable or because you're afraid of being alone. It can be settling for a career that doesn't challenge you, doesn't bring you joy, or doesn't help you contribute to something greater than yourself. It can be settling for habits, attitudes, or mindsets that keep you stuck in cycles of negativity and complacency. But none of these are the things you were meant for. They are distractions. They are detours from the life you are truly meant to live. The reason people settle is often because they don't believe that more is possible. They don't believe that their dreams are worth pursuing. They don't believe that they are capable of achieving the things that stir their hearts and ignite their passions. But let me tell you this, your dreams, your purpose, your potential are not too big for you. They are not out of your reach. The only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live is the decision to believe that you can have it. It's the choice to reject settling for less and to start pursuing the life you truly desire. There's a story in the Bible about the Israelites. They were slaves in Egypt for generations, and when they were finally freed, they had the opportunity to enter the promised land. A land flowing with milk and honey, a place of abundance, of promise, of everything they had been dreaming of. But when they got to the edge of the promised land, many of them were afraid. They saw the giants in the land, and instead of trusting that God would give them victory, they chose to settle. They decided that they were not capable of overcoming the giants. They decided that what they had was enough. And so they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, never entering the land that was promised to them. They chose to settle for less. This story is a powerful reminder that we too can miss out on the fullness of what God has for us if we settle for less. There is so much more available to you, but it takes courage to step into it. It takes faith to believe that the best is yet to come. It takes a willingness to trust that you are capable of more than what you're currently experiencing. The wilderness is a place of wandering, of waiting, of uncertainty. But the promised land is a place of abundance, of purpose, and of fulfillment. Don't settle for wandering in the wilderness when God has promised you the fullness of life. Step out in faith. Step into the land He has prepared for you. The thing about settling is that it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. When you settle, you limit the impact you can have on the world. You limit the influence you can have on others. You were created to make a difference, to bring light into the darkness, to inspire others to reach for their best. But when you settle, you are essentially telling the world that your dreams don't matter. that your purpose doesn't matter, and that you're content with living beneath your potential. But the world needs you to step up. The world needs you to stop settling for less. It needs you to go after the things that stir your heart, to pursue your passions with everything you've got, and to trust that God has equipped you for greatness. Let me ask you something. What would it look like if you stopped settling for less? What would your life look like if you believed that you were capable of more? What would happen if you decided that you were no longer going to live in the land of good enough, but were going to step into the land of greatness, into the life of abundance that God has promised you? What if you stopped letting fear, doubt, and insecurity hold you back from pursuing the life that you truly want? What if you began to believe that you are worthy of the life you've always dreamed of, and that you have everything you need to make it happen? I believe that you are capable of achieving incredible things. I believe that you have a purpose that is greater than what you can see in your current situation. I believe that God has called you to a life of greatness, a life of influence, a life of impact. But the only way to step into that greatness is to stop settling. It's time to stop accepting less than God's best. It's time to stop living in fear and doubt. It's time to stop shrinking back and start stepping up. You have been called for such a time as this. You were created for more, and it's time to take hold of everything that God has for you. Don't let fear keep you from stepping into your calling. Don't let doubt convince you that you are not worthy. Don't let the opinions of others dictate what you can and can't do. You have everything you need within you. You have the strength, the courage, and the ability to create the life you desire. You have the potential to make a difference, to change the world, and to live a life that reflects the greatness that is within you. It's time to stop settling. It's time to start living in the fullness of who you were created to be. It's time to reject mediocrity and embrace the life of abundance that is waiting for you. You are not meant for less. You are meant for greatness. Step into it. The world needs you to stop settling for less and start living the life you were born to live. The journey we face in life is filled with challenges, doubts, and moments of struggle. But in the midst of it all, we have the choice to rise above the negativity and refuse to settle for anything less than the greatness we are destined for. The negative emotions we experience, while real and sometimes overwhelming, do not define us. We can acknowledge them, learn from them, and choose to move forward with strength and resilience. We are not meant to stay stuck in the wilderness of mediocrity, nor should we be held captive by the limiting beliefs that keep us from pursuing the fullness of life. The obstacles in front of us are only temporary, and they are preparing us for something greater. Our past struggles, present challenges, and even our fears are not the end of our story. They are the building blocks of a future filled with promise and potential. We are not defined by the pain of today. The struggles we face are part of our growth, and each step we take through them is an opportunity to get closer to the life we were meant to live. When we choose to embrace the possibility of a better future, reject fear, and take bold steps forward, we begin to tap into the purpose that is uniquely ours. So let us refuse to settle. Let us choose not to live in the shadow of fear or negativity. Let us reject the temptation to shrink back from the greatness we are called to achieve. Instead, let us walk with courage, step into the promises before us, and trust that the best is yet to come. Our future is waiting, and it's time for us to embrace it with everything we've got.